Starr, the CEO of Florida Credit Union.
Thank you. Florida Credit Union is proud to be part of this, sponsoring this event, as well as Rethink Gainesville. You know I'm very excited about what's happening in Gainesville, Innovation Square, and the other new things that we're doing to develop our community economically. I think it's all going to serve us all very well in the future. We're approximately $600 million. We are over $600 million in assets. We rank in the top 5% in size in terms of credit unions in the country. We have branches we do business in about 26 counties in north central Florida. We have branches, of course, here, Marion County, Stark Lake City, DeLand, and we're working on 2 new branches. We have about 60,000 customers, 210 employees, so we've become a very large organization. One of the things that we've really placed a big focus on the last 5 years or so was our commercial banking services. We offer a full line of commercial products, everything from loans to transaction account services. So I would encourage you to talk to the Florida Credit Union staff about that. Again, thank you. We're proud to be part of this, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm really excited to introduce Lucas Boyce. He came from Orlando. He has such an inspiring story from foster care to working in the White House and then eventually becoming an NBA executive for the Orlando Magic. Can you play basketball?
I do.
He has a really great story about overcoming obstacles and really finding opportunities in every failure that we have. So please help me welcome Lucas.
Good evening, Gainesville. You guys are a great shining crowd out there, and I can barely see you because the light's here, but I will do my best. Thank you very much for the invitation, Kristen, to the Florida Chamber of Commerce, to the Florida Credit Union. I am honored to be with you, and I just want to take a few minutes of your time and share with you all something that all of us already know, and that is that we are living proof. And to begin, I need to take you back to May 29th, 2008. Okay, I find myself on this incredible plane. You might know it as Air Force One, right? We are en route to Kansas. I am looking out the right window of this plane, and I'm trying to reconcile 28 years of life with being on this plane. And to kind of further explain this to you, this just wasn't any ordinary day. May 29th was the 28th year anniversary of the very day that I was sent to foster care. You see, I was born premature, weighing 4 pounds, 2 ounces, sent to foster care. Was sent to the foster care home of a person by the name of Dorothy. And Dorothy, as you can see here, had over the course of 15 years, 40 foster care children. She met with over 200 caseworkers. And she told all of us that we were living proof. And so I tried to reconcile being born to a drug and alcohol addicted 19-year-old with being on that plane. And it was at that moment that I realized that I was living proof. It was at that moment that I realized that it was important to share with anyone that I came into contact with that they were living proof too. This is our family growing up. And one of the first things that Mom taught all of us growing up was that we will all have obstacles, whatever those obstacles might be. I had obstacles of developmental delay and different things like that. But she told all of us that we had to build each other up. And there's a psalm in Psalms 139 that says that all of us are fearfully and wonderfully made. And in 2014, that means that we are built for something more. And it didn't matter whether we were young or old, didn't matter whether we were black or white, it didn't matter whether we had disabilities like my sister Leslie or my brother Albert, who was paralyzed from the waist down because of the choices that his mother made. All of us are built for something more. Regardless of where we start out in life, it matters where we decide that we're going to go. And so we're a team at the Orlando Magic, and as if you've read in the paper, we're going through a little bit of a rebuilding phase. We went through a little bit of a public divorce with our best star player. He now plays for Houston. But how we get back up to the top, how we become the Miami Heat, is that we do this together. And as Gainesville, whether we are young or old, whether we are black or white, whether we are young entrepreneurs or people that have been in business forever, we need to understand that as we rethink Gainesville, that we do this together. Because we don't move forward unless we do this all together, okay? The second thing we need to understand, if we are going to do this together, if we're going to rethink Gainesville, we have to believe in what's possible. And my mom taught all of us young children at a very early age to believe in what's possible. Robert F. Kennedy said that there are some people who will see things as they are and they will ask why. Others will dream things that could be and ask why not. And so I graduated from high school in 1998, and my mom asked me what I wanted to do with my life. She said, Lucas, what's next? What do you want to do? And how are you going to get there? And I can remember going to the Capitol in 1996, and at night we went to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And I can remember telling my mom that I wanted to work at the White House. Okay? I had no clue what the odds were of that happening. We knew nobody in politics, whether Democrat or Republican. We knew nobody famous. If you consider 300 million Americans at any given time, 2 million government jobs, 3,000 appointments that any president gets to make, and 500 of those appointments all work at the White House. But that didn't matter to a person whose mom told him that he was, number one, built for something more, and number two, that he could believe in what's possible. The second dream I told my mom was that I wanted to fly in this plane. If any of you have ever seen that movie in 1997 that came out, Harrison Ford, Air Force One, this is not just any ordinary plane. This is, the president, as you can see, has his own conference room on the plane. He has his own apartment on the plane, his own office on the plane. So this is not AirTran, all right? This is not Southwest. And if any of you have ever seen that show on MTV called Pimp My Ride, this is about as pimp as you can get in the sky, okay? And I told my mom that I wanted to work at the White House, I wanted to fly in Air Force One, and as you can all tell, especially those of you in the front, I'm about 5'6", 5'7" on a good day, right? So I had no grand illusions of being a NBA star or being like Michael Jordan, but I knew that there was more to what you saw on the court. And Michael Jordan is a person who overcame incredible obstacles to be the greatest player of his and our generation. And I really looked up to him growing up. And so I told my mom three things. I wanted to work at the White House, I wanted to fly in Air Force One, and I thought that Michael Jordan would play basketball forever. I thought that, and I told her that I wanted to work for the Chicago Bulls. Now, we can do anything we put our minds to. That's what Mom tells us, right? But there's a formula to this, and I call it the 4 Ps. So we all have to have a plan, right? We have to be willing to put together a plan and write on paper what our action steps are going to be. That next P is if any of you have ever decided you're going to run a 4K, if you're going to lose some weight, if you're going to gain some muscle, it takes pain. Inevitably, anything worthwhile in life will require a plan of action and pain. Along with pain is patience. But if we will combine pain, patience, and a plan, that 4th P is the prize, and we can move the world. So when Mom told all of us growing up that we can do anything we put our mind to, I've come to realize over the course of time that yes, that's true, but there's also a formula on back of that, the 4 Ps, okay? We have to give more to get more. So if I can get everyone to do a little bit of audience participation here, if everyone can raise your hands for me as high as you can. And put your drinks down, right? Now, check your neighbor, see if they're doing this. Now raise them just a little bit higher, okay? Now raise them just a little bit higher. All right, you can put them down. So as we rethink Gainesville, as we think about the future, as we think about the next 5, 10, 20 years of life, the question my mom asked me is the question I have to ask you. What's next? What do you want to do? And how are you going to get there? And in order to get there, I would submit to you that at 210 degrees, water is just hot. At 211 degrees, it's hotter still. It is only at 212 degrees, fully stretched out, that water begins to boil. Boiling water becomes steam. Steam can power a locomotive, and that locomotive goes down the track. So in order to get where we want to go, in order to rethink Gainesville, in order to be the innovators, the incubators, the leaders of this next generation, in order to overcome the obstacles and take advantages of the opportunities that are before us, we can't live life at 210 degrees. We must live it at 212. And a real quick example of a person that does this, her name is Kelly Wells. She represented us at the U.S. Olympics just a few years ago. And she is a person who, over the course of her lifetime, lost both of her parents on the same day when she was about 16. And she could have shrunk from the world. She could have shrunk from the opportunity of the moment. But she was willing to see mountains that were too high to climb and still try and climb them. She was willing to see oceans that were too wide to cross, and she still tried to cross them. She became the parent to her sibling, and she brought us home a bronze medal from the U.S. Olympics a few years ago because she was willing to live life at 212 degrees. As we rethink Gainesville, what will life look like for us? What will our race look like for us? There will inevitably be hurdles, just like Kelly had to run. There will be obstacles, there will be challenges, but moreover, there will be a great deal of opportunities. My friend Alfonso Jackson, the former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, I was in his office one day in 2002, and he lifted up his pant legs and he showed me the teeth marks that were left from dogs as he walked across bridges in search of civil rights in the 60s. He held no ill will, but he told me this. He said, "Lucas, if you can look up, you can get up." And I would offer that to you all. In the next 5-10 years, in the opportunities and the obstacles that we will face, we have to understand that if we can look up, we can get up. I told you that my birth mother did a lot of different things that caused developmental delay in my life, and I had drugs in my system. Flunked kindergarten. But I was willing to believe in what my mom told me, and I was able to turn flunking kindergarten into being valedictorian in my high school class. I was willing to take being valedictorian of my high school class and working for a president of the United States. When you think about the odds of the number of people that ever get to work for a president, you understand why I believe that all of us are living proof. And it doesn't matter where we come from, it doesn't matter where we start, it matters where we decide to go. This is me on Air Force One, going to Nebraska and in front of the plane in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I kind of joke with people, I have no clue where this one was taken, I just needed proof I was on the plane. There are some people who will see things as they are and they will ask why. Others will dream things that can be and they will ask why not. I am blessed now to work for an incredible basketball team. No, we are not in the playoffs, but it gives me a lot of time to come and do speeches like this, right? And I didn't get to work for the Chicago Bulls, and the lesson is twofold. Number one, in December and January, I'm really, really glad I work in Orlando. But more importantly, number two is things don't always happen exactly as we plan. But if we're willing to follow the 4 Ps and understand that we can do anything we put our minds to, things don't always happen immediately. But with time, with patience, with embracing the pain, things can happen suddenly. I never thought in a million years that Florida would be my home. I grew up in Missouri, and I thought I was going back to Missouri. And I've been here for 6 years now, and this is now my new adopted home. You never know what happens if you're willing to dream. One last story before I turn it back to Kristen, and this is the most important quality that all of us need to have as we rethink Gainesville. We have to choose character. We have to understand that at the end of the day, what happens in here and what we do in our private moments when nobody's watching will be the barometer for our eventual success. It was the very first day I ever met the president, March 25th, 2002. I was a 22-year-old, young, fresh-faced intern. Came back to my office. My boss pulled me aside. He's like, "Lucas, somebody's going to call you. They're going to ask you to do something. My advice to you is to just say yes." And I was kind of cryptic, and I had no clue what they were talking about. They called me over to the West Wing. They took off my suit coat. They put on this T-shirt for the USA Freedom Corps, and I'm standing on the south lawn of the White House, looking up at the house, looking up at the Oval Office in amazement, and they bring out these kids. They were like 8, 10, and 12. And I'm 22, and so I'm scratching my head. I was like, look, I know I look young and I'm short, but why am I hanging out on the south lawn with a bunch of teens, right? And then the president came out. Guys with the Secret Service classes came out. And it's like, oh, this is with the president. So he goes through all the kids, he gets to me, and he sticks his hand out and he says, "Hey, I'm George." Of course, I knew that. I grew up in small-town Independence, Missouri, and responded in the only way I knew how, and that was, "Well, what up? I'm Lucas," right? And he got a kick out of that, and over the course of like 15 minutes, he didn't have a lot in common with the 8, 10, or 12-year-olds, so we just started chopping it up, talking. Finishes the photo op, I start to walk away, and he calls me over for this photo. I pull him in, as you could tell, for the brother hug, and you can kind of see his look like, what the hell is going on, right? And afterwards, this is 6 months after 9/11, and I tell him, sir, I'm praying for you. The cause is just, right? And I think that's it. I go home. We didn't have Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, any of those things, Instagram in 2002. So I could think of one person on the face of the planet to update my status with, and that's Mom. So I call Mom. We're all excited, and I think that's it until the next day. My boss comes back from a meeting with the president in the Oval Office, and he's like, you made a real impression on the president yesterday. And of course, my heart started beating kind of fast, and I went back to this photo, and I thought I was going to lose my job, right? And I started apologizing. He's like, don't worry about that. The president called me over after this meeting. He's like, hey, I met this guy in the South Lawn yesterday. He said he works for you. What's his name again? I said, Lucas. It's like, well, what's his story? And my boss proceeded to share with him a little bit about what I've shared with you all today, about growing up in foster care, the different obstacles that I overcame to be a White House intern. And the president did something that day that is the #1 reason I could share this story with you today. He said, well, what can we do for him? Let's bring him on board. And that was how I got my start. A random chance encounter on March 25th, 2002. And the lesson is twofold for us. #1, it taught me my very first lesson in leadership, that you know the true character of an individual by how they treat the person that can do nothing for them. I was an intern. I wasn't anybody important, wasn't his chief of staff, wasn't a world leader, could give him no money for his next campaign, but he took the time to chat, had the presence of mind to remember some random kid that he met, and went one step further and said, get him a job. The second reason I shared this last story with you is because as we think about rethinking Gainesville, as we rethink about what we do over the course of the next 5, 10, 20 years for this region, you never know who's watching. You never know who's going to be in a position to help you get to where you want to go. So if I can close and offer you anything, I would offer you this, that we would believe in what's possible, that we would build each other up and understand that we are living proof, that we are built for something more. If we can give more to get more, if we can live life at 212 degrees, if we can understand that no matter what happens, if we can look up, we can get up, and if we will understand at a fundamental level that at everything we do there must be character, that we are on our way to rethinking Gainesville.